Hey, Susan, what happened?
My husband, David, finally arrived at my hospital room where I was recovering from my miscarriage. He glanced at me and muttered.
Oh, again.
Then he clicked his tongue in annoyance. When he saw my brother, Ryan, who had rushed to my side, he asked,
So, who's this guy? Did you bring a man here?
Ryan, unperturbed by David's attitude, calmly said,
Hey, there's a woman covered in blood with long curly hair trying to hug you from behind. Do you know her?
What? What are you talking about?
David looked at Ryan in shock.
Yeah, she's wearing a large light green, a peridot ring on her right ring finger.
As soon as David heard this, his body started trembling.
No.
David groaned at Ryan's words and hurriedly dashed out of the room. My name is Susan Brown, 29 years old. I live with my husband, David, and work full-time while managing our household. Without any children, I work daily as an office employee. We are what you would call a runaway couple. It happened 5 years ago. When I was 24 and in my second year at my job, I was not allowed to participate in any company gatherings or drinking parties due to my parents' strict rules. Though such gatherings significantly decreased around the following year due to the pandemic, back then, young employees often went out together for fun. My family was very strict about attending drinking parties, and I was told not to go unless it was absolutely necessary. My colleagues always said, "You're not very sociable," which made me feel left out. One day, I sneaked out to attend a matchmaking party without my family's knowledge. That's where I met my current husband, David. David was 6 years older than me, a salesman dressed in a sharp suit. The people at the gathering introduced him as someone who excelled at his job. That day, he was very considerate towards me, knowing I wasn't used to such social events. He helped me keep up with the conversation, subtly stopped others from making me drink too much, and eventually saved me from an unwanted after-party, sending me home by taxi. At that time, he seemed very gentlemanly. I was instantly attracted to him. We soon started seeing each other personally and officially began dating. 6 months later, he proposed to me. I was ecstatic and immediately accepted. However, my family didn't take it well. My family is wealthy, with my dad being an executive at a major local trading company. My parents always told me, "We'll find a suitable partner for you." And they were very strict about dating throughout middle school, high school, and college. Looking back, my parents and Ryan must have known I was not good at judging people. Ryan always said,
I'm not going to stop you from being with someone you like, unlike our parents. But at least let me meet him.
My brother Ryan, who is 10 years older, has always been my most reliable confidant. Despite how reliable Ryan was, I hesitated to introduce David to him at that time. Ryan's piercing gaze seemed to see through everything, which scared me back then. Rebelling against my parents and avoiding Ryan's sad eyes, we decided to elope. I moved into David's apartment first, which caused him to be harassed by his boss at his then current job. My dad's company was a client of his company. Back then, we were on cloud 9. We decided to quit our jobs and move to another state together. So, we both left our companies and moved out of state. And that's when we registered our marriage there. Looking back now, that might have been our happiest time. Because right after we moved, David's attitude towards me started to change. It was an older, cheaper, and smaller apartment than the one he had lived in before. We started living there together, but suddenly David told me,
I have to work even harder from now on, so you'll have to handle all the housework.
okay, then I'll be a housewife. I started to say, but David interrupted me.
Oh, of course, you'll still work full-time like you did before.
He said it like it was the most natural thing in the world.
Your job is much easier than mine, isn't it? So it's only fair you handle the housework too.
I couldn't argue with him. My earnings were nowhere near David's. David found another sales job at our new location, and I found a new job too. However, my new job didn't pay me well or treat me well. The only difference was that most of the women at my new workplace were a bit older and more caring towards me compared to my previous job. Every day, I had to do the shopping on my way home, manage the housework, and adjust to the new routine. Back when I moved into David's apartment, he didn't let me clean because of his obsession with his decor. He was also a good cook and often had meals prepared while I was asleep. But after we moved, he stopped doing any of that and left everything to me, harshly criticizing me if things weren't up to his standards.
Hey, there's dust here.
Sorry, I didn't notice.
You missed it last time too. Don't think someone else is going to clean up after you forever.
Got it. I just nodded in agreement. What he's saying is reasonable, I thought at the time. At home, I knew how to cook, clean, and do laundry, but I didn't have to do much of it. Now I had to do everything, not just for myself, but for him too. And if it wasn't good enough for him, he'd criticize me harshly, making it impossible for me to relax. Moreover, he pressured me for intimacy even when I was exhausted. Sorry, I'm tired today. But David didn't listen to me at all. Eventually, when he was unhappy with my refusal, he started going out at night more often. Oh, this is my fault, I kept thinking at the time, because it was true. David, who had been a top salesman at a good company, had to leave his job and move to a small apartment because of me. So I had to make it up to him. I convinced myself of that. I pushed myself to work hard and manage the housework, waiting for my often absent husband's return. Around our second wedding anniversary, I got pregnant. But I miscarried before I even realized I was pregnant. Even David was shocked at that time, immediately calling an ambulance and staying by my side, looking worried for a while. At that moment, I thought David's fading love for me had returned. But it was just an illusion. After I was discharged from the hospital and started working again, David began dipping into our joint savings. I don't remember when I noticed, but one day I decided to check the bank account and saw our balance was rapidly decreasing. What have you been spending money on lately? I nervously asked David about our joint savings.
It's none of your business, right? Do you have a problem with what I do?
But this account is our joint savings. There might be another emergency like my sudden hospitalization, and the same could happen to you too, right?
Yeah, but that's because you had a miscarriage on your own.
When I heard those words, I couldn't understand what he meant for a moment. What do you mean, a miscarriage? I was lost our baby.
But it was your body that did it, right?
I was at a loss for words.
And we can always have another child in the future. Stop bringing up depressing topics.
And with that, he went back to his usual routine. Can I have another one? I asked myself. No, the child I lost can't be replaced by anyone else. Even if I have another child, it will be a different one. That's when I started to feel distrust towards David for the first time. Another 2 years passed, and I got pregnant again. This time, I was determined to protect the baby, so I planned to cut back on work and eventually take maternity leave. However, it was hard to find the right time to discuss my pregnancy with David. He was often away on business trips at that time, but I knew those trips were a lie. When I tried to inform his company about my pregnancy and asked about his business trip,
Business trip?
David's boss asked me in a puzzled voice.
I didn't send him on a trip. He told me he had to take leave for a family memorial service. Didn't you know?
Oh, I must have remembered wrong. Please don't tell him I asked. It was a misunderstanding. I ended the call, but I felt completely drained. What on earth? How could he use such an excuse to take leave? Now that I knew he wasn't on a business trip, I tried to keep up the conversation without letting it show. If the company found out he lied, David would surely get scolded. And if that happened, he would blame me, get angry, and might even become violent. That was the last thing I wanted. I had to avoid that at all costs. If that happened, I might lose my second baby as well. I kept silent. When my morning sickness got worse, I finally told David I was pregnant.
Oh, so we're adding another money sucker, huh?
He grumbled. Even though I had started to distrust him, I couldn't believe he said that. No matter how bad things were, I didn't think he would say something like that. No, that's not right. I didn't want to believe it. By then, I already knew our joint savings account was nearly empty. After the first miscarriage, I had been saving up for the next childbirth expenses. But because of my growing distrust, I had also been slowly setting aside money in a separate account. When I saw that our joint account was almost empty, I resolved to use my own savings. Of course, I kept this a secret from David. If he found out, it was clear he would immediately threaten me to hand it over and take the money. The only place I could find some peace was, surprisingly, at work. Sometimes, my older female colleagues would worry about me.
You don't look well. Are you okay?
Are you tired? They often cared about me. At first, I would say I'm fine and continue working. Having worked at my current company for over 4 years, I can say that while the salary isn't high, but I get along very well with my colleagues. That's why I continued working there even longer than at my first job. And this time, my colleagues were much happier about my pregnancy than David was. That's because I had told them about my previous miscarriage. Most of my colleagues were much older than me and had been working since they were young, switching to part-time after having children. In other words, they understood my situation. They could sense that despite my severe morning sickness, I was forcing myself to work because I feared what my husband might do if I didn't. Eventually, my company, seeing that its policies were in place, told me, if you're having a hard time, you should take a proper rest. So, I was almost forced to take a leave of absence.
Take care of yourself and come back to work with us.
Those were their kind words. I was so moved by their warmth that I almost cried. Then, just as I was about to leave, I suddenly felt overwhelmingly tired and collapsed. I lost consciousness immediately and later learned that I had suffered severe bleeding on the spot. I was told that an ambulance was called immediately, and I was taken to the hospital. When I regained consciousness in the hospital room, my previously large belly was shockingly flat. I couldn't understand what had happened at first. But as I gradually realized what had happened to me, I buried my face in the pillow and cried silently. I took my smartphone from my nearby bag and called my family home. After a few rings, I realized what I was doing and quickly hung up, but soon after, my phone started ringing again. I couldn't move in my condition, so I could only turn the volume down. I couldn't ignore it, so I answered in a low voice. Hello.
Susan?
It was a familiar voice, Ryan.
I recognized your number right away, but you hung up immediately. What happened?
Unable to hold back my sobs, I slowly told Ryan over the phone that I had lost my second baby. Ryan just listened quietly. When I calmed down, Ryan spoke slowly.
You've been through something tough, haven't you?
Ryan is still the kind person he always was.
Where are you now?
Sorry, I'm at the hospital. I can't move. I'm in bed.
I understand. It's not good to talk on the phone, so I'll come to you right away. Where are you?
I told him the name of the hospital. I had heard it from the nurse when I woke up. I also mentioned that it was relatively close by in the next state.
Got it. Wait a little. I'll be there soon.
Hearing Ryan's voice for the first time in 5 years still gave me a sense of relief. I wondered how he was doing now. Since we had lost contact, I worried if I might be intruding if he was married. These thoughts kept swirling in my mind. A few hours later, Ryan arrived at my hospital room. Apparently, it was a shared room, but there weren't many people around. So, when Ryan entered the room, I managed to cry while still lying down. Ryan.
What happened?
Then I started sobbing as I recounted everything that had led up to this moment. This time, I tried to be careful with my pregnancy, especially after what happened last time. Maybe I felt relieved because I knew I could take a break, or maybe all the accumulated fatigue finally caught up with me. Whatever the reason, my body had reached its limit. The life that was supposed to be there was gone.
You've been through a lot.
Ryan said as he stroked my hair.
By the way, where is he? Haven't you contacted him yet?
I shook my head. I heard from the hospital staff that they contacted his company. So, I've been waiting, but he hasn't come yet.
But you know, I'm very angry.
I'm sorry. I started to say.
No, not about that. It's that you didn't introduce him to me first.
That's because. Just as I was about to explain, the hospital room door opened again.
Hey, Susan, what happened?
It was David who arrived. He glanced at me and muttered.
Oh, you did it again.
Then he clicked his tongue in annoyance.
So, who is this guy? Did you bring a man here?
No, that's not it. This is my brother Ryan. Just as I was about to say that,
Hey, you.
Ryan stared at David, slightly furrowing his brows.
What? Do you have a problem with me?
No,
Ryan squinted.
but there's a woman with long curly hair covered in blood trying to hug you from behind. Do you know her?
He said calmly to David.
What? What are you talking about?
David looked at Ryan in shock. Ryan pointed at David.
I mean her. She's wearing a large, light green, a peridot ring on her right ring finger.
Ryan's words were casual, as if he were talking about the weather. But as soon as David heard that, his body started trembling. It seemed he finally understood what was being said.
What are you talking about?
David asked loudly, disregarding the situation.
Please keep your voice down. This is a hospital, and I'm just telling you what I see. Oh, right. Her curly hair is quite tight, and it looks even tighter because it's wet. She seems a bit younger than Susan. Maybe a college student?
What are you saying?
That woman is clinging to your neck, with bright red lips turned up in a smile.
Ryan mimicked the woman's movements, causing David to shudder.
No. What are you saying? That's nonsense.
I'm just describing what I see. I don't know or care who she is to you.
No.
At Ryan's words, David groaned and hurriedly ran out of the room. What did you see this time?
Yeah, just like I said. Anyway, I'll make a call outside. Wait here.
Ryan said that and left the hospital room. So that's what he saw. I let out a big sigh. Before we got married, I didn't want Ryan to meet David because of Ryan's sensitivity or sixth sense, or whatever you might call it. It's been that way since we were kids. Ryan always found things I lost.
There's something bad around you.
He also saw through it when I was being isolated at school. He even complained about needing sunglasses when we visited cemeteries. It was just part of my daily life back then. I was afraid of what Ryan might say if he saw David, who was already opposed by the whole family. Ryan sees through everything. So you could say that I ran to a place where Ryan's gaze couldn't reach. Of course, that wasn't the only reason. Eventually, Ryan came back.
Sorry for the wait.
Who did you call?
I'll tell you later.
Then, with a serious expression, Ryan turned to me and asked,
Do you really want to continue with him?
I stayed silent. I kept gripping and releasing the blanket cover.
It's hard for you, right? Come back home.
Well, won't it be a problem for you, Ryan? If I returned, it would be to my parents' home. And it's Ryan who will inherit the family home. If he were married, I didn't want to be an unwelcome sister-in-law.
Oh, I'm still single.
What? You're still single?
Yeah, because of this ability, it's hard to find someone genuine.
Being able to see those things isn't just convenient.
When I walked into this room, I immediately knew you weren't happy. There was a dark cloud around you.
A dark cloud?
Remember back in the day when you were falsely accused and your classmates avoided you? There's a similar dark presence around you now. You don't seem happy at all.
Hearing this, tears started falling from my eyes again. Yeah. I nodded deeply. I can't take it anymore. I want a divorce. I thought having a child would make things better, but it wouldn't have.
Yeah, your baby probably helped you realize that staying was a mistake. So, come back home. I'll handle him.
Handle him? I wiped my tears and tilted my head.
You'll see soon.
Ryan said firmly. After I was discharged, I returned to my parents' home. My parents seemed very surprised to see me after so long. They might have wanted to scold me for eloping, but they were more shocked by how thin and gaunt I had become.
You really went through a lot.
My mom said this as she hugged me.
You've learned a lot in your life.
My dad told me that. Since I needed some time to recover, I submitted a request for a long-term leave of absence from my job. I needed some time to recover, so I submitted a long-term leave of absence to my company, adding that I might quit. They probably understood that I might be getting a divorce after witnessing my second miscarriage.
You seem to have had good people at your company.
Ryan observed as he watched my responses. Yes, it was the only place I felt at peace. I finally realized that I could never truly relax at home. A few days later, David came to my parents' house.
I'm sorry, but I know Susan is in there. Please let me see her.
He barged in with a very rude tone.
We can't let you see Susan,
Mom said firmly.
but we need to talk to you.
And what kind of talk is that?
David played along.
Let's get straight to the point. Please divorce Susan.
Is that what Susan wants?
Yes, she doesn't want to see you now.
Oh, is that so?
David said as he walked into the living room, guided by my family. I was in the next room, and I was secretly watching. David plopped down on the sofa and looked around.
I guess a girl from a good family couldn't handle that kind of life.
He started bad-mouthing me in front of my mom.
It's unacceptable for a wife to run back to her parents' home over something like this. What kind of upbringing did she have?
My mom listened quietly, but soon there was a knock from behind the door. She responded, "Come in." From there, Ryan appeared.
Your turn, Ryan.
Thanks, I'll take it from here.
David let out a small gasp.
You.
Nice to see you again since the hospital.
David tried to rise from his seat, but he couldn't manage it. As he tried to stand up, he was pushed back down by a strong force on his shoulder. At the same time Ryan entered the room, our family's security personnel had come in from the other side. We are from a long-standing family, and there's always some staff on standby. Ryan sat in front of David, who was being held down, and spoke.
There are a lot of things I want to ask you.
What do you mean?
Ryan glanced and pointed his finger at the side of David, who was being held down.
Today, the woman is clinging to your side. The same one as before.
What are you talking about?
Do you know this person?
Ryan said that, and then he took out a picture of a woman in front of David, placing several photos on the table. David gasped again.
How did you?
David started, but then stopped.
No, I don't know her.
He tried to deny it, but it was too late.
Really? You don't know her? But I can see that woman's arms, whether from behind or the side, slowly tightening around your neck. And you haven't even noticed, have you?
I told you, I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, I can see things that others can't. But I know that just seeing her isn't proof of what you did to her. So I had my people look into it. I asked if anyone knew a person like this.
Ryan showed a drawing from his sketchbook.
It's useful to explain things that aren't visible to normal people.
So, in other words, he can draw to some extent. I had also seen his drawing. A woman with long, wavy, blood-soaked hair with a terrifying expression that was both resentful and smiling, clinging to David. Not only that, when Ryan explained her wet hair, I asked, "What do you mean?"
Well, she's probably not alive anymore.
Ryan said casually. For Ryan, seeing such things was a part of life, though it had caused him trouble when he was younger. When he was little, I struggled because of this condition, but now he had come to terms with it and managed it well. Ryan continued to address David.
From what we found out, this woman is currently missing, isn't she?
I told you, I don't know her.
By the way, about this missing person.
Ryan ignored David's denial and continued.
Well, I actually looked into that situation. This is the investigation report.
I had seen it too. After seeing the woman at the hospital, Ryan contacted our lawyer, who then contacted the police. Of course, he didn't mention his ability to see spirits. He simply asked if they knew anything about this person, and wanted to understand her current situation. Regarding the police, the influence of my family standing in this area also plays a role. We found out that the woman had disappeared last year and her family had filed a missing persons report. By the way, the place where she lives is close to the apartment we used to live in the neighboring state. Could it be? I thought that maybe David had started seeing her around the time he began spending our savings and staying out. Could that woman be? I asked Ryan after hearing about the investigation.
Probably.
Ryan answered vaguely. And probably Ryan is now planning to question David about that.
Since last year, you've been spending more money and taking more trips, right?
That's our business. It has nothing to do with you.
It does. You spent the money Susan saved for that woman, didn't you?
Ryan continued calmly, which seemed to gradually irritate David.
That's between us as a couple.
Yes, and because of that, we think you should divorce Susan.
No, that's not happening.
David refused bluntly.
Why? Well, I get it. Because it means less income for your family, right?
David clicked his tongue again. After thinking for a moment, he said,
I'll agree to our divorce, but you'll have to give me something in return.
What? Are you saying you want money in exchange for a divorce?
Of course. You all opposed our marriage, so she couldn't come home. I was willing to divorce her, but I stayed married out of pity for her, thinking she had nowhere else to go.
Hearing David's words, I felt like I was going to be sick. All the time I had been waiting for him, staying silent, he had been thinking like this.
You guys barged into my life, and because of that, I had to change jobs. Everything kept going downhill from there. Isn't it fair to get some compensation for that?
Maybe if you were a decent person.
What did you say?
David started to rise, but he was pushed back down.
I told you we investigated, right?
Ryan looked towards the door. There stood police officers who had been waiting.
Why are the police here?
I told you, we looked into it. You aren't very thorough. But maybe it's better for you to get caught here. If not, that woman's arms will keep wrapping around your neck, tightening along with her hair. She's got quite a terrifying look on her face.
What do you mean?
Ryan glanced to the side and nodded a few times before speaking.
Oh, this peridot is fake. She realized it during a trip and confronted you, didn't she? And you lost your temper.
Shut up. Whether it was real or fake, she was happy when I gave it to her.
Ryan's probing had hit the mark. The waiting police officer smoothly raised his badge and said, seizing the opportunity,
Excuse me, we have some questions regarding the disappearance and possible murder of Mary Taylor. Please come with us.
Our security personnel released David and handed him over to the police. I finally felt like I could breathe. And then I slowly entered the room.
Susan, you heard everything? I won't agree to a divorce.
Even if you say that, I've already made up my mind. You never took the miscarriages seriously. Both times, David barely glanced at my deflated belly. I regret choosing you with all my heart. David was at a loss for words. What have I been doing all this time? I wasted my time, energy, and money on someone like you. Ridiculous. He didn't think I would say such a thing, and he stared wide-eyed and open-mouthed. Goodbye. We'll handle everything through my lawyer now.
Wait, Susan, hold on.
Let's go.
David was still trying to say something, but the police officers escorted him out. Later, during police questioning, David confessed. Mary Taylor was a student living in my neighborhood. She wanted to marry David, who she met through a sugar daddy arrangement. That's why she was pressing him to divorce me. However, David still seemed to think of me as some sort of cash cow. His ultimate goal might have been to use the divorce as leverage to extort money from my family. But to David, Mary was likely nothing more than a fling. During a trip to the mountains, they argued about the imitation ring, and in a fit of rage, he pushed her hard, causing her to fall and hit her head. If it had ended there, it might have been considered an accident. But what David did next was drag Mary to the edge of a cliff and push her off. Because the area was outside the police's initial search scope, Mary's disappearance remained unsolved. Thanks to David's confession, her body was found in a mountain stream, covered in grass. David was arrested again, and it was certain he would serve time in prison. Through my lawyer, I got him to sign the divorce papers, and I was finally free. I'm off now.
Take care. Do your best.
With my mom's encouraging words behind me, I took my first step toward my new workplace. For a while, I took a complete break from my previous job to rest my mind and body and return to my parents' home. After my health and emotions stabilized, I began job hunting. The 5 years of living on my own might have toughened me up a bit. I like to think I'm more resilient now than I was during my first office job. However, I'm not eager to get married again anytime soon. And considering I lost 2 children, I want to stay away from marriage and pregnancy for a while. Ryan is also waiting for the dark cloud around me to clear and for a more peaceful atmosphere to settle in. I don't know what the future holds, but from now on, I want to take care of myself and those around me.